Hi, this is Anne Marie Zanzal and
Tonda McKay, her wife.
yeah, some of us, you may know us. We have been around the Later in Life Facebook groups for a very long time. And a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, I started a business to work with people who are in the process of coming out later in life. I typically work with cisgendered and trans women who are later in life. So what does later in life mean? Ironically, it's really subjective. I have worked with people as young as 25 who consider themselves later in life, and people over 75 plus. I think it's generationally defined. So a lot of times people that are 25 plus now, between 25 and 35, they think they're late because a lot of their peers came out in high school or college and they think they're late. While people that have that come out later, are truly later, but not too late, because there's no time in life where we cannot question our sexuality and or gender and make changes to live a more authentic life. So why are we doing this, Tonda? She's my tech person tonight, and I think I caught her off balance.
You're in charge.
So we just wanted to cover some of the questions that people have asked us from time to time. If you have any questions, I'd love for you to put them in the chat. If you don't care if I see who it is or who is asking the question, that's fine. But if you want to have your identity known, you have to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give StreamYard the permission for me to be able to see the comments. Oh, I have our first one. Somebody's waving. It's a Facebook user. I'm not sure who it is, but if you want to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give StreamYard the permission, that would be great. So, signs that you may not be straight. There is a download for this, and we can put it into the comments now. So, Tonda, how did you realize that you were not straight? What were some of the signs that made you start to consider it?
When I was making out with my prayer partner from the Baptist Student Union.
Okay.
In college.
But according to our list, there are a bunch of different things too that people consider.
Well, when I was in high school, I used to just sort of daydream about my girlfriends and think how wonderful it would be to be their boyfriend. I mean, I'm not trans, but that's the only way I could get it through my mind at the time. So I would think about that.
And how about other things?
I would always identified with women. Are you talking about me specifically or just anybody?
It's you. Yeah.
I always wanted to be around women more than I wanted to be around men.
So that was for you a clue? Or is it sort of like a clue when you started adding up all the pieces together?
For me, I didn't know until I had my first experience. I didn't add it up until then. How about you?
Well, so Tonda came out when she was in her late teens, early 20s. And as a lot of you know, I didn't come out until I was 52 years old, after having been married for 27 years and having 4 kids. When I look back on it, a lot of the ones that are on the list that we put out tonight, like, watching, lesbian movies, having gay and queer friends. It seemed the universe always surrounded me with a lot of gay and queer people. But for me, I really distinctly remember when I was, if I went to a party or we went somewhere and I knew that there were gay people there, and generally there were gay men, and I would like go towards them like a moth to a flame because they were my people. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I felt really lost in the straight world. I mean, I did everything you're supposed to do, but I still felt lost. And so whenever I saw gay people or queer people or trans people, I always would um would really, go towards them and hang out with them for the night. So that's sort of like just sort of this longing I had to be with gay, straight, LGBTQ people. So we have a list here and signs that you might not be straight. Now, I think I'm going to have Tonda go onto the Facebook Live and copy the paste of the PDF, copy and paste the PDF there. Hold on, this is all new for us. You're going to have to refresh your Facebook feed. So we're getting it done here. Uh, so not sure where that is, but that's okay. We're gonna figure this out. So some of the things we talked about is like, so you've heard this in our group. Straight girls don't lay awake at night wondering if they're gay. So that's true. If we spend a lot of time and a lot of brain space wondering if we're are gay or not, that is a question to consider. Sometimes people have a lot of fantasies about women, whether they're sexual or, they dream about kissing people. Lesbian TikTok. Lots of people, there's a joke that lesbian TikTok has created the later in life revolution here. But, if you find that your algorithms are feeding you a lot of lesbian TikTok, chances are you may not be straight. You also maybe do you have a lot of gay or queer friends? There are a lot on this worksheet, and after the call tonight, I will put them up in our Facebook group. So somebody asked, "What are our thoughts on sexual fluidity?" So what do you think?
Um, I think the term sexual fluidity may be basically the hetero world's idea of why women come out later in life. I think there is some sexual fluidity, but I think a lot of times what they're calling sexual fluidity is someone who realizes that they're gay later in life, and because of the heterocentric nature that we're all raised in, you don't come out until later in life. And so they say, oh, they're sexually fluid, so they decided to be a lesbian late in life. But I think that it's just because you either have more time later in life, or you just realized it because you were just following the norms that we're all pushed towards. And that's how I feel about it. What do you think?
I think people can be sexually fluid, which is, I think that sometimes people may not be aware that they have attraction to people of the opposite gender or people that are trans until it happens.
Mhm.
And I think you have some points, Tonda. I do think that sexual fluidity is a way for the straight world to explain why people don't come out at. It's so ironic too, because they use it to explain why people come out later in life. Yet they make it the straight world, the heteronormative world, the compulsory heterosexual world, make it really hard to come out as queer. So, and then when you don't do it when you're a teenager, you sort of get shamed by that, and it's sort of ridiculous because people should be able to question their sexuality, question their gender, be curious about it, be curious if they're interested in people of the opposite sex or people who don't identify as a gender at all. they should be allowed to do that no matter what. There shouldn't be laws that, like, there are like societal laws. There shouldn't be such like laws that we can't, question this, or maybe not laws, but a time frame. There shouldn't be a time frame when we can question all of these things. We should be able to question our sexuality, our gender, anytime in our life. And I am really inspired by the women in our group and the trans women in our group who have come out 50, 55, 60 plus, 70 plus. I feel like it has been like one of my greatest joys watching a woman that didn't realize they were gay until they were 70 all of a sudden fearlessly explore this world, and often end up dating, and often falling in love with somebody. So I think that's really, really wonderful.
But as far as fluidity, I mean, the heart wants what the heart wants. Fluidity implies to me that you can just decide who you're attracted to, but I don't really think that we can't decide that. Um, I think we can become aware of. I definitely think there are bisexual people who are attracted to both genders, or pansexual people, but I think, I don't know, the word to me, fluidity, seems like you're in control and you're deciding, oh, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go over here. But it's your heart that says, oh, I'm attracted to this sex or that sex.
That's a good point. That is a really good point. The heart, the old saying, the heart wants what it wants. And for those of us in our community, in our later in life community, it is sometimes astounding when we realize that we're in love with our best friend, or all of a sudden in love with a coworker. So that has been, you all understand what I'm talking about. Your heart wants something, but we have been conditioned to believe that we need and we want something else. But your heart knows. You know what you want. There's another question, Tonda.
It is wonderful to love a later in life lesbian.
Do you want to ask Tonda was asked, what is it love like?
Oh, yeah.
Read the question.
What is it like to love a later in life lesbian? And then, do you ever have doubts about Anne Marie's sexual attraction to you? It's wonderful. It's wonderful to love a later in life lesbian. As somebody who, I would say, is just a battle axe old lesbian. I've just been gay forever, and you actually forget a lot of the things that you're afraid of, even a lot of the prejudices against gay people. You just have lived with it for so long that you don't even think about it. And a good friend of mine, when I told them that I was dating someone who came out later in life, they said, "Oh, she's not jaded. Everything is new." And that's exactly what it was like. It was like everything was new. I was remembering things that was happened 30 years ago. And it just brought a perspective that I hadn't had in decades. As far as, do I ever have doubts about her attraction to me? Not in the not in the least.
Not in the least. And I would have hit her if she said yes. Joking. I'm joking. So as you've looked at I'm going to put the PDF up afterwards. I just have to, this is technical and this is new for us, but we're going to definitely iron out these wrinkles the next time around. But what I want to say is that if you have looked at this list, or look at the list afterwards tonight, and you have circled more than half, a third, it's most likely that you're not straight. And so or less than straight. So why do we say not straight versus lesbian, woman loving woman, which is WLW, bisexual, etc.? Um, because a lot of times people are really afraid of those labels. So if we call somebody a lesbian or a bisexual or a WLW, it can make people pretty afraid. I'll never forget when I went to my therapist after I'd come out to her, and it was like the second time. So it was right after I'd come out to her, and she called me a lesbian, and I went, don't call me that because I just couldn't accept that term yet. And then I started to date a woman whose
My favorite
word
word
is lesbian.
she used to say, "You really like that word lesbian a lot." And I was like, I am a lesbian. It comes up in conversations a lot. I really have no emotional feeling for it.
But a lot of times that word has been used as a slur, has been used to demean us in the community. And so sometimes people, and I'm going to be really honest, when, back in the dark ages when I was in high school, when somebody was called a lesbian, it meant they were less than feminine and they were less than pretty. Now, I don't think that at all. I find lesbians incredibly attractive. I find butch lesbians really attractive. So I don't
Thank
agree
God.
with that. I don't agree with that at all. But I understand why there's a lot of hesitancy. And for a lot of us, we're so tired of labels that when we come into the queer community and we see all these labels, we're like, what the heck? Like I have just left a community where I'm trying to leave a community where I have this label of mom, sister, wife, caregiver, teacher, all those labels. So the thing is that what do we want to say to you is you don't have to pick a label.
But also, when you're in the heterosexual community, you have one label really as far as your sexuality. You're heterosexual, you're married, you have children. There's
Mhm.
no in because of the diversity of the gay community. There are labels, just so it's just so we can find each other. We can find.
Well, sometimes why there is labels is, when you go on dating apps, they ask you what you are and what you prefer. And so that's another reason why that there's a lot of labels. But the point is if you're new in this journey, you don't have to pick a label. And sometimes we joke that you try on every letter of the alphabet before we decide what our labels can be. And so people often change. Sometimes people realize that they're more queer. Some people realize that they start by questioning their sexuality, but then they realize it's also about their gender for them and or their gender for them. I have had people who have joined in my later in life groups. And as they have made this journey, they realize that, yes, they are attracted to women, but they also realize they don't identify as a woman anymore. So some of them move more towards non binary, while other people, I have had a couple people in my groups transition and are now trans men. So it is a journey for some of us. So some of us may come out and it might just be about our sexuality. And I say just, right. It's about our sexuality, while others it may be a little bit more complicated than that. So that's why we say not straight, because it makes people nervous. And it's an easier way. It's like when you open a door, it's a way to open the door of the closet a little bit and let some light in. So a lot of times I encourage people to consider the fact that they may not be straight. And guess what? That's okay.
If you Google late in life lesbian, you look up Anne Marie, you may not be 100% straight.
Yes. Yeah. If you Google, am I gay? How many people have done that? I've done that. I have Googled, I've watched lesbian porn, but then I realized that lesbian porn is not really lesbian sex. I have, before I came out, I had crushes on a lot of women. And ironically for me, I never had crushes on my straight friends or anything like that, but I found I was attracted to lesbian women, women that I knew were gay. And I had crushes like that, so much so that it became a pattern for me, so that I would recognize it. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to have a crush on her and think about her for 3 or 4 weeks. And then I would finally move on. So the thing is I'd love for you to take a look at the list. If you're circling more than one or two, you know, perhaps you may not be straight. But I want to say another thing too. You know, not one of these things indicates that you may not be straight. Not two or three may not indicate you may not be straight. But as you become more comfortable, Tana has a saying that we really wanted to share with you. So we're saying this with in tongue in cheek, but also with a lot of love out there. So
Well, this used to be what we would say if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck. We used to say looks like a duck, but that's not always true. Then it's probably a duck. I mean, when you have, as Anne Marie says, you have more than 3 or 4 things checked off your list, then maybe you are. And part of it is just the fear of embracing that, keeps us from fully engaging with it sometimes.
mhm, mhm. But what I want you to all to know tonight, but what we both want you all to know tonight, it's okay to question. It is okay to be curious about it. It is okay to join a bunch of Facebook groups of people coming out later in life and people who've been out forever. It is okay to find community. So, all those things are okay to do, and you're not betraying anybody. You are just exploring who you are. We are just exploring who we are as human beings, and that's okay. We had another comment about sexual fluidity, Tanda.
Linda says, thank you for sharing your thoughts on fluidity, Tonda. For me, I don't think of fluidity as a choice. It feels more like a natural flow. The journey of coming out has been finally paying attention to the flow of what feels true to me. I guess it comes down to how we define fluidity. I think you're welcome, and I think you and I are saying the same thing in different ways. I also agree that I don't think it's a choice. Uh, it Fluidity, if you define it as flowing towards what feels more natural, I agree with that for sure.
So, I have in the comments below by this Facebook Live. We will have a bunch of resources. I have a new pillar page on my website that has a ton of resources for our later in life community. Please go check it out. I'll also have the worksheet in there as well. We will be having a workshop April 24th, 2022. It's a Saturday. It's from 1 to 5. If I will put the link in that for that as well. And I'll also put a link in for a discovery call. I do see people individually and help coach them through this journey, but I also have a group coaching program with about 15 women in it, and it's a great program. So if you want to learn more, you can talk to me for about a half an hour for free, and I can tell you all about it. But I also really would love to hear your story, because sometimes it's just nice to share your story with someone who understands, and both of us understand.
And what is the most important thing if you are questioning your sexuality?
I don't know. What's the answer?
You say it all the time. Finding your people.
No, there's two things. Finding your people, and also the second thing, the only person in the world who can name your sexuality is you. Not your therapist, not your pastor, not your husband, not your kids, not your grandchildren, not your children, not your parents, not your sister or brother, not your aunt and uncle, not your friends, and not the crusty old lesbian down at the end of the bar who says, no, you can't be a lesbian. You've been married to a man. None of those people can name your sexuality. The only person that can name your sexuality is you. I spent 8 years going to professionals and hoping for them to give me the answer that I was gay. And it wasn't until I acknowledged that I was gay, that I was a lesbian, that I was queer, was when everything began to open up for me. So that's it. And we will be back next next Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be talking about conditioned self and authentic self. The conditioned self is how we were taught by family and society to be, and authentic self is something that I hope all of us are moving towards as we go through this journey of coming out. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.